I guess the really big standout here, and the biggest point of, I'm going to say contention, but it's not the right word, but you all know where I'm going to go with this, is Callum Richie. Has Callum Richie played himself onto a roster spot at this point? Because he looks pretty goddamn good out there.
No, he definitely does. He didn't come away with a point in his last game that he played, but it was still a noticeable performance from him. Like sometimes it's not always are you getting points on the board, but a lot of this is eye test, right? Like before the start of the preseason, we said it was going to be eye test with Matthew Schaefer, who I believe is passing that. Maybe we put a pin in Schaefer and get to him at a later point in this episode here. But specifically with Cal Ritchie, I thought he's been good in the preseason. I do still think that it's going to be hard for him to crack this initial roster. I understand those who may be frustrated if he doesn't make the roster, but you look at the lines from camp today, they shook things up, and maybe we'll get to some of the other moves that they made at another point. But Cal Ritchie kind of essentially skating with the extras on a fifth line with McLean and Gatcombe.
Yeah, I don't really understand people who get mad saying he needs to be there. I would love to see him start the season in the NHL, because he did it for the Colorado Avalanche. You're thinking they're better than us. How can he make it for them? And blah blah blah. But it's a little bit different. We don't need to run him. We don't need to force him in. Not to say the Colorado Avalanche needed to either. They thought they saw something, and then they gave him the 9 games. They're like, no. They might have just wanted to give him the 9 games just to really, really see. He hasn't dominated camp, but he's done very well defensively. Like Patty's come out and said, I trust him when he's on the ice defensively, which is not something you say about kids his age. They're just not usually sound defensively, which goes to show all the work that he put in over the year. Because he said at the OHL level this season, he was working on his defensive game, his off the puck situations, and how he could dominate, maybe not dominate, but do well in those situations. And it's proving to have worked, because you're seeing that now. And he's getting, when he was playing during the preseason, some really good, like some heavy deployments against some big oppositions. And he's come away with a 57.7% expected goals for at 5-on-5 through the preseason. Now, that's not the best for the Islanders, but that's pretty goddamn good for someone like that.
No, it absolutely is. And to me, it's not necessarily like, if Cal Ritchie doesn't make the roster, it's not, oh, he didn't do enough. I just think they would rather have him play. And I don't know if they would play him all that much if he was, like, I think he could potentially be a 13th forward if he made this team, which I think serves him no favors, right? Like, I want this guy out there on the ice, and I'd rather him go down to the AHL than be a healthy scratch. And the reason why I say it that way is because I think the coach, Patrick Roy, made it pretty clear that they don't plan on moving him off of center.
No, exactly.
So unless Barzal's getting moved to wing, unless, something else is happening that we don't know of, which things could change in the next week and a half, Mitch.
Yes.
But as of right now, I still don't think he's going to be on the roster.
I don't think so either. And I don't know what the situation was with the Colorado Avalanche, as we referenced earlier, in terms of the roster, but it's not like there's a ready-made hole here for Callum Richie. As you referenced, like if Matthew Barzal is playing down the middle, we're pretty stacked down that position with Bo Horvat, Matt Barzal, Jean-Gabriel Pajot, and Casey Zizekas. Now, you can argue that Casey Zizekas has not done very well through training camp, or at least in this preseason games, and that's totally fair. And so can you argue putting Callum Richie on that fourth line? Okay, fine. Yeah. Especially if you're looking at a fourth line like they've got here, right? They've got Maxim Siplikov. No, sorry. Yeah. Siplikov and Duclair on the fourth line. With Callum Richie, that sounds like a pretty goddamn good fourth line. It's not a crash and bang fourth line, but can that forecheck the shit out of another team and maybe give you some offense? Probably.
Yep. No, I don't disagree with that. It's more so I just don't, like, we could think they should pull Casey Zizekas out of the lineup. Like, I think fair take. Will they do it is another thing. And I personally don't see them doing that.
No, because Casey's got those years of experience of not just saying like of experience just by looking at a resume, but they know what to expect out of Casey Zizekas. Is he giving you it at that at 100% right now? Maybe not through what we've seen through preseason. That doesn't mean it's going to kick up when it comes to the regular season, which he's got tons of experience in that. So will that show up again? Probably. I expect Casey Zizekas to totally be fine going into the regular season. And so at this point, again, it kind of speaks to there isn't a ready-made hole for Callum Richie to come into this lineup tomorrow. You can't say that has he outplayed Casey Zizekas and or Jean-Gabriel Pageau. You can argue that maybe Casey, and maybe, but there's still, can he fill that fourth line role, right? Maybe not. He's maybe better suited for a third line role at this point of his NHL career. Has he outplayed Jean-Gabriel Pageau? I would argue not right now.
Yeah. And I think that's fair. I definitely think that's fair. And I guess the only argument that I could give you some pushback on is Richie's line mates, if he came in with versus Zizekas, would be similar to third line players to me, like Duclair and Siplikov. I mean, they played above that last year. And if you look, Duclair should be a 40+ point guy and 20+ goal guy. He wasn't last year. Injury playing a big part of it. And Siplikov, had 35 points last year. So not your prototypical fourth liner, and that wouldn't be a prototypical fourth line at all, that they'd be running out there. Again, to me, it's more so I just don't see the Islanders doing it. Not that I think at this point, Casey Zizekas is miles better than Cal Ritchie.
Yeah. And you also want to give Pageau that time. Like, you've given him 12 minutes of 5-on-5 ice time through this preseason. So, like, you don't just want to give him the preseason time, but you want to give him the time during the regular season because he is a tradable asset. And you don't want to just say, like, we have to get rid of him because we really like this Ritchie kid. And it's never going to be of getting rid of Jean-Gabriel Pageau. It's we don't want to be put ourselves in a situation where we're forced to move on from Jean-Gabriel earlier than we're ready to do so. And right now it might be a little bit early to say, like, we have to move from Jean-Gabriel Pageau. Callum Richie hasn't been that outstanding at camp. He's been great. And I'm very excited to have him on this team going forward. It's just, it hasn't come to a point where he's outplayed or he's played Jean-Gabriel Pageau off this roster.